Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather, now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Wrap Podcast, the place to catch up on all the regional and national rugby in Wales. You can find us on all the usual social media platforms and message us through there if you want, or you can email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. So all the boring stuff out the way, let's talk rugby.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Wrap Podcast with me, Lee G, and joining me as per usual. I genuinely can't get rid of them. They keep coming back week on week. I got Harley and Jamie. Good evening, gents. How are you?
Good evening. Well, good, thanks.
Good. Yeah. So the other one isn't here. He's down in Sardis Road.
House of Pain.
Yeah. See, I quite like the band The House of Pain, so when they started calling it House of Pain, I got a little bit miffed. But so he's down there training with his girls tonight. He's going to hopefully join us later. Hopefully, maybe not. So yeah, just us three gents, just us three to amuse ourselves for the evening. So James, you can't do drink of the week this week. You're shitting out a drink of the week this week, aren't you?
Well, I haven't been well for a few days, so I'm going into too much information. So tonight I want ice cold water, which is really boring, but really refreshing, actually. So, yes, no alcohol for me this week, I'm afraid.
Not to worry, mate. It tastes better when you come back to it, trust me. So, Harley, what have you got, mate?
So, I got given as a present this key lime pie gin, and frankly, it's just a bit sweet and a bit So I thought I'd try and turn it into a lemon gimlet, which is a lemon curd, lemon juice, and gin, just to try and get rid of some of the sweetness.
Lemon curd, lemon juice, and gin.
Yep.
That sounds interesting.
Very refreshing.
Really?
I like lemon curd. I do like lemon curd.
On toast, yeah. Lemon curd belongs on toast and your breakfast.
Lemon curd belongs in like a lemon cheesecake, but actually in our cocktails, not bad.
If you say so, then mate. If you say so.
I mean, you've got to like sour things to appreciate it.
We're at that stage of drink of the week where you put jam in a gin and everyone just goes, yeah, that's perfectly normal.
No, that's a breakfast martini. This is a lemon gimlet.
Oh my God! Well, we know what Harley's bringing next week. Then he's having a breakfast martini or whatever.
If I can be bothered to buy Contro.
Oh, for crying out loud, man!
This is what lockdown did to me. It turned me into a weird hipster bartender thing.
Let me see what, like George's magic medicine, only with alcohol and various things from the fridge. I like the sound of it, mate.
You should try my Long Island iced tea sometime. That'll put you to sleep.
Well, Long Island iced tea is basically everything on the shelf in a pot and zhuzhed up, isn't it? That's how you make a Long Island iced tea. So,
and a bit of Coke to make it look like you're not just drinking the alcohol.
which you are. So, mine seems really tame now. Mine seems quite normal. Mine's a premium Belgian white fruit beer. It's not white, it's red. Yeah. It's called Truly.
I've had that. It's lovely. It's nice.
That one there, yeah.
Yeah, I've had that. Beautiful drop. Like that.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me that you've had a strawberry beer before, Jim.
Yeah, so, it's really nice. It is.
Yeah.
It
was one of those things that was like, find a strange beer that I haven't had before. So I think that's it. I think I've done all of Tesco's weird beers now. Unless they bring something in by next week, I'm going to have to go and start buying alcohol from somewhere else, which will just feel very strange. Apparently, B&M is the place to go to buy your really weird alcohol. So I might stretch that this weekend.
Home bargains as well. B&M home bargains are very good for strange and different beers. Put it that way.
The pound stretcher do alcohol?
Oh, Christ, I've been a pound stretchers for years. This is still going. Oh, there's one in Newport. Of course there is. I just remembered there's one in Newport City Centre.
Maybe Poundland. Maybe Poundland will do really bizarre alcohol.
It'll be all German style beer with all the umlauts on the wrong letters.
Anyway, let's do some rugby then, gents. So, James, I'm going to save you the pain of another news desk introduction. So, news desk,
thank you for that.
Over to you, mate.
Okay, so just rattle through these quickly then. So, signing news: Cardiff have signed Welsh fly-off Alwyn Robson from English Championship side Cornish Pirates. Dragon supporters will be aware of Robson, of course. He made 24 appearances for the region before being released to play for Cornish Pirates. I think that's a great signing for our wellness, a decent pickup by Cardiff. And if we go west now to the Scarlets, so they played the Barbars on Saturday. They won 33-19. Welsh international Tane Plumtree scored his first try for the Scarlets on debut. And we had former Scarlet favourite Rob Evans, was one of two Barbarian try scorers. It was a very entertaining game by all accounts of what I read. No idea what the attendance was, as the Scarlets haven't included it on their website. So, to those who went, I'm sure you all had a good time. And speaking of Rob Evans, according to Wales Online this evening, Rob Evans and Kirby Myhill are on the verge of signing for the newly formed American club Miami Sharks, which is pretty interesting. And just the last bit of news then, really good news, I think we all agree. Wales women are going to take on Italy at the Principality Stadium for their final match on Super Saturday of the 2024 Women's Six Nations. So hopefully they'll get a big crowd in for that one. I think that's really good news. That's all I got for the news. If anyone wants to add any more to that. Or...
Well, I was just going to say, before we move on to the next bits, the Rugby World Cup bits, about the women's game, so and kind of relating to us as well. So I've pretty much finished setting up all of the new pods for Cardiff Dragons and Ospreys. We're going to have a Welsh language pod as well. And then I had a thought, we really should have a women's game pod. But again, same as the Welsh language one, I'm not really qualified to do that. So we've got people that are going to do that. So if there is anybody out there that fancies a crack at the women's game pod, ideally female players, female presenters, that would be great to just add to the Wrap family. And like I say, with the others, I've got the Welsh language one sorted, so that'll be on its way shortly. The Cardiff one, we're recording that first one this week. The Ospreys one would have recorded the first one of that last week, but the presenter couldn't make it. So I do need a second presenter for the Ospreys one. And as always, Jane, struggling with the Dragons. I'm always struggling with the Dragons. So if there's anybody that fancies a crack, at the Dragons Pod. By all means, get in touch because we'd love to complete the family with some dragons on that. So, yeah, I just thought I'd throw that because I usually throw it in at the end and people start switching off by then. So I thought I'd throw that in now because that's all ready to go. So talking of media coverage, Harley, take us through Rugby World Cup news, my friend.
So first of all, I just want to so I'm just going to quickly run through the scores and then we're going to go through some talking points. So we kicked off on Thursday night with France-Uruguay. So France just about managed to win against Uruguay 27-12. Then Friday, it's a bit more convincing where New Zealand beat Namibia 71-3, and we'll come on to two talking points in that game in a second. Then Saturday, we had Samoa demolish Chile 43-10. Wales beating Portugal, which we'll go on to. So no spoilers on the score for this one. Ireland running rampant against Tonga 59-16. And then Sunday, we had South Africa beating Romania 76-0, and utterly pitiful display from Romania there, I'm afraid. England scraped past Japan 34-12. And then probably game of the weekend, we have Australia 15, Fiji 22. So because Lee likes the update on who's been carded and whatnot, we had two red cards over the weekend. First one was to Ethan de Groot in the Namibia game. He's currently on a 2-week ban, assuming he passes tackle school, which it seems to be impossible to fail. So he's out for the rest of the pool stages, but should be back for the quarterfinals, providing, of course, New Zealand get there. And then we have the winger Pinto for his very unnatural boot to Josh Adams' face. He's going up for discipline. From the Wales-Portugal game, we also had a citation for the Portuguese number 8. Yes, I've got to double check his name because I've just had it in my head all day. Rafael Simoes. Apologies for the pronunciation. Francisco, if you're listening, please correct me later. So the news for that is apparently it was a second for a high tackle in the second half. From the news from the Portuguese camp is that they're not entirely sure why he's been cited for this challenge, and I don't know if anyone saw it, but I didn't. I'm watching the game back on the live stream and initially and then again. So don't know what's happening on that, but both of those are going to be listened to on Tuesday. We have a couple of big pieces on the injury front. So Malcolm Marks is out of the World Cup, and he has been replaced by a little-known hooker called Andre Pollard. So hopefully his line-out throw-ins are up to scratch. Big news, having missed the Fiji game, Eddie Jones has confirmed that both Will Skelton and Daniela Tupou are going to miss the game versus Wales, which is almost a guaranteed thing if they're going to start. And I think that's a wrap-up of all the big... so there is one major injury. Unfortunately, I've forgotten the name of the Namibian flanker. He's had his surgery and apparently he's recovering well. Is the last I've heard of that. Which brings me on to something that's really annoyed me Friday night. So, as I've alluded to, there was this freak accident and the Namibian flanker suffered what was described as a dislocation and break of his ankle. And one journalist on Wales Online thought fit to go back, find it, screenshot it, and then post that as their main headline for Wales Online. And I just want to say, plenty of people have pointed out how out of order it was. You can run a story about a player being injured without having to show the horrific injury and adding to that pain and anguish from his family. And I think I'm gonna leave that there. If either of you two want to go in, if not, Jamie, you want to carry on this theme of media?
No, hang on. Before we move off of that, because I thought that was, well, we all did. Everyone did. And I think that's the bad bit about it. You may put something up to start with, but you think, it's one of those momentary decisions where you go, all right, I'll put this up there. Yeah, great. And then people start saying to you, hang on a second, that's out of order. That's wrong. and it dawns on you really quickly to take it down. You know, you get that real quick feeling. You go, oh, okay, oh crap, yeah, I can see what they're saying now. Yeah, I'll take it down. That post stayed up for a long time. I don't even know if it's still been taken down yet.
I think it is. I think it's still up.
Still up. And I mean, for what purpose other than clickbaiting, and kind of trying to shock people into have a look at this sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? It just for an alleged Welsh national, we know they're not Welsh. We know I know there's Welsh reporters in there, and some of them are very good. But that's an English company. That's everything gets tweeted out, all the social media and all that kind of stuff gets done from the centre. So to leave that out there, was just. It's not in the spirit of rugby. It's not in the spirit of, we've all been on a pitch where somebody's had a really bad injury and straight away, and in the crowd, and the crowd got quiet and everybody's, you saw the way the crowd reacted when he got taken off. Nobody even started the game until he was out of the stadium and gone, and everybody applauded right until it wasn't just while he's in shot, it's until he was completely out of the stadium. So they got it, and we've all been there in that situation where somebody's had a really bad injury and everything stops and you've got to kind of take yourself away from it and all of this. I can't understand why that wasn't taken. I can understand why it was put up. Heat of the moment, oh my God, look at this, bang, off you go. But for a national news agency to put that up and then leave it up, beggars belief for me. Absolutely beggars belief.
It's all about clicks, isn't it? And what's disappointing is the broadcasters made a conscious decision not to show that replay, and it was absolutely the right thing to do. And then you got Wales Online putting up that thumbnail of the foot going the other way. We just didn't need to see it. We did not need to see it. And it's such a shame because, there are some really good writers for Wales Online, but when they go into clickbait territory, that's when it's really disappointing for me.
Yeah. Well, you saw the reaction from, the referee, the touch judge, the players that were around him. They just went, oh, holy shit, and walked away. Somebody needs to have a bit of humanity at Wales Online and get their head out of social media. The best people on social media are the ones who don't spend their entire life on there, that they understand what life is outside, sort of a thing. They're the best social media managers, and I'm not going to pretend that we're anywhere near that. I'm just saying you can, but do you know what I mean? We make mistakes. We do, because we're just normal people just doing normal things. We're not. That's not our job. It's not our job to do that. And I don't know. Maybe that's the way Wales Online work. Maybe that is his job, and maybe whoever decided to put that up gets paid on clicks, because the amount of people that complained about that, each one of those was a click. And that's the way it works. So, let's just say we're all incredibly pissed off with Wales Online and move on from there. So who else are we pissed off with?
ITV. I got to talk about ITV because I need to know when the contract ends for their coverage of the World Cup and whether other broadcasters can come in, because I've had a gutful of them. I've had an absolute gutful of ITV. They're getting worse. It's like every weekend they're ruining, rugby. It's just awful. So on Saturday, you had the Wales-Portugal game. And when the final whistle went, I didn't stay for the analysis. I quickly switched over because my wife wanted to watch Strictly and I had to do some stuff. So we didn't watch the interview, say anything else. I do like Strictly, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
so
me too.
We switched over to Strictly, and I wrote a post on Twitter saying something along the lines of, despite the difficulties and the frustrations that we've seen with Wales, we've got 10 points. We all would have bitten, our hands off to have 10 points at this stage, wouldn't we? And then somebody replied saying, no, it's actually 9 points we got. So I go, no, it's not. What are you on about, you idiot? It's 10 points, isn't it? It's 2 bonus point wins. So I sent him a screenshot. I had to double check then. So I went on to the Rugby World Cup app, the official app, and I screenshot it. It says 10 points. Like, what are you on about? And then people got involved in the conversation. They had a load of mentions. So what happened was, after the game, ITV showed Wales as having 9 points, not 10. Now, come on. This is basic stuff, isn't it? It's just little silly things like that, getting the score wrong in the first game. And I know some people said, well, the one flag went up and the one didn't. It's just silly little things like that. It's just really frustrating because it should be, you shouldn't make mistakes like that. Sure, this is basic stuff. So that annoyed me, first of all. Then I watched in the Australia-Fiji game, right? And it was an absolutely brilliant game. It was almost ruined by the commentary of Nolly Waterman, okay? Now, I got to be careful what I say here, because if I put this online, I would get the wrong sort of people chipping in and replying, because you would get a lot of what I call gammons and gatekeepers bemoaning the fact that it's a woman commentator. And that's not the route I'm going. This is not a gender thing whatsoever. And I want to make that absolutely perfectly clear, okay? But the commentary during that game was just awful. It was absolute cringe. And it was just the stuff she was coming out with. She described Bottia. There was one point in the game, she said, Bottia, he's a complete savage. And then she was like, he's a magician and he's like granite. And he's, she said about this one player, he's the size of a shed. And she was just coming out with this really weird sort of meaningless soundbites. Like, what are you on about? And then watching the game with my wife, and she's like, who's this commentator? I said, oh, it's not even, oh, she's awful, isn't she? And that's not for me, that's from another woman as well. And she does get a lot of criticism about her commentary online, Nolly Waterman. And unfortunately, she does get a lot of abuse, and that's bang out of order. No one should be abusing her whatsoever, because it's wrong. But I've got to say, I could understand why she winds the viewers up, because her commentary is terrible. Every time I've listened to it, I just haven't enjoyed it. And she was just really shouty, coming out with like all these awful cliches and sound bites. And it was like, no, I don't need to hear that. I just want to know what's going on. I want you to tell me what you're seeing and your opinion. Do you know what I mean? It just felt weird. It felt cringy. I just didn't enjoy the commentary on that game at all. And then on the Sunday then, sorry?
I was about to say, I think she's just been spending too much time with the BT crowd, because I remember when she first started doing the odd game here and there, usually on things like Premier 15s, she was incredibly insightful and talking about how back lines would set up and back three defensively, and it was really, really engaging. And I feel like all pundits and BT sort of get dragged down to the level of some of the other ones, just because they feel like that's the style it has to be, because they're the ones who get all the big work.
I'm sure she's really insightful.
I imagine we're going to have the same issue with the Sunday games. With the saying that Fiji Australia was Sunday, but for me the big one was Japan, where they couldn't for the life of them say Shota Horie or Labuschagne.
I was about to come on to that.
There was 12 different pronunciations of both their names, and all of them were wrong.
Yeah, I was about to come on to that. So, like I said, with Nolly Waterman, it's not gender thing whatsoever, because I quite like Philippa Tutti at commentating now. She's another one that gets a lot of criticism for her commentary online, but I actually think she's a better commentator than most people give her credit for. And I actually think Claire Thomas, who's also commentating, I think she's a very good commentator. I've viewed her on a couple of games. I think she covered the Italy and Libya one. I thought she was very good. But I just found Nolly Waterman's comedy it was cringy, it was loud. It was, like I said, it was just meaningless sound bites that we just didn't need to hear. And I'm hoping, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, I'm hoping she's not covering Australia v Wales, because I'm going to have to go to S4C. I'm going to have to go on BBC Radio Wales. I can't put up with that. I can't. I'm sorry. And then on the Sunday night then, so we start off with Sir Clive. They're discussing the Wales match. Oh, it's a great result for Wales. Yeah, so they're talking about the Fiji match. Great result for Wales. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not a great result at all. What would have been a great result for Wales is if A, Australia had won, or B, if Fiji kicked that penalty at the end, because that would have denied Australia losing bonus points. As it stands now, this pool is wide open, and just because Wales are top, yeah, we're in a decent position, but it wasn't a great result for Wales at all. Clive has just looked at the pool, haven't he? You've seen Wales at top, and you've gone, oh yeah, this is great. And no, Clive, it's not. Like, pay attention, keep up to what's going on. And then we move on to the commentary of England Japan. Now I didn't see all of this game. I have to be honest. I was sort of flicking through and doing other stuff. And I really like Nick Mullins. I want to say that first of all. I do like Nick Mullins. I know he's another Marmite commentator, but I do like Nick Mullins. But honestly, that bit there when he said, Argentina's defence holding out. It's Japan, Nick. It's Japan. Argentina was last week. It is Japan. Now, somebody said, I don't know if this is true, but I've seen other comments of people saying that he referred to Japan as Fiji at one point. Didn't he say something like Japan won the World Cup 4 years ago or something?
He said something like, this isn't the Japan team that we saw winning the World Cup in their own country. And then he just moves on, and you're like, I didn't.
Come on,
and I quite like him as well, but you do get to that stage where you kind of go, are they just trying to say something to fill the space? Do you know what I mean? And one of the great things with people like Eddie Butler, for example, is he could let the silence happen and just let the game happen. Yeah. If you didn't need to say anything, I mean, radio is different. Radio is, you have to have something going all the time. But, the commentator needs to have a feel for the game and a feel for the crowd. And I think this is going to sound quite harsh now, but it's in my head, I know what I'm talking about. With the advent of like professional broadcasters, so you grow up, you go to college, you study a media degree, you go into radio, you do media, and then you're commentating on a game. You may not have played the game at all. You may have seen a lot of the game. You may have commentated a lot of games, but you haven't stood on a terrace when it's pissing down and it's 4 degrees below and your side are getting pasted by your local rivals. You haven't stood there and cheered when your winger gets a 20-meter break and scores a try at the last minute. You've got to have a feel for the game. You've got to have an experience of living the game. And some of the guys that are out there now, I mean, guys and girls, whatever, some of the people that are doing it now don't have that for me. Eddie, you could tell, Eddie and Brian Moore, they kind of wind each other up. They'd be a bit of a niggle, but they were actually good mates, and they both understood the game, and they could tell you about the game. The way they communicated the game was good. And I think that's what's missing now. That's what's missing.
I agree with what you're saying, though. I mean, less is more. And that's why I would say, for someone like Nolly Waterman, I don't want to hear nonsensical, cliched sound bites. I just want proper commentary. And I don't want to shout to that either. She was really shouty. Like, less is more. And I just think ITV, on a general point, I just think they're really lazy. I think they're really complacent. They have some good pundits. I think Sam Warburton is really good. I like Habana on there. Mark Pugach, the presenter, is a football man. You can tell he hasn't got the rugby knowledge. Like, even in his follow-up questions, he's not asking really interesting, specific questions. It's like, they played well, though, didn't they? When they had some opportunities, but, it's like, oh, come on. I mean, friend of the pod, Hugh Griffin, who's your Scott's co-host, he did a really good rant on his podcast, the Pirate Rugby podcast. Yeah. And he's more eloquent than I am about explaining this. But ITV, I just think, are really doing rugby a disservice for their coverage. And I just wanted to get off my chest because it really did annoy me. It's just little silly things, getting people's names wrong, getting scores wrong, getting pools wrong, nonsensical nonsense in commentary. Just come on, be better, ITV, please. Just be better.
Well, I was going to say, this is when me and Harley stepped in, but go on, Harley. What were you going to say, mate?
I just wanted to put in... So, because actually, I do think there were a couple of decent bits of ITV coverage. So, after the France game, you was a big discussion, and it was it might be enough needing him. It was Sean Fitzpatrick, Maggie Alphonse, and I can't remember who the other pundit was. I think it was Shanklin, or it might have been Flats and Shanks doing the demonstration, talking about jackal turnovers and how the breakdown works. And actually, there was a very nice, insightful discussion about saying, well, as someone who's only ever really had to hit the breakdown, this is what I thought about this, as someone who bringing a Maori saying, I had to clean it out. And then they went to Sean Fitzpatrick and said, well, back in our day, this was rucking. We had to do it this way. And it was actually a decent discussion. The problem is you then have discussions like the drop goal demo on Sunday.
Oh, that was
and
awful.
It was just
wasn't it?
word soup. It was just some weird words. I'd honestly thought I'd put something weird in my tea. Going on with the thing with Nolly and shouting, because I like actually a commentator who goes in and all they have to do is call the game. I think the thing some people don't like with Nolly is if she's leading, because I've heard her on lead, like when she's leading comms and she's the one just calling the game. When those cliches come in, you kind of say, all right, that's fine. But when you go to a second commentator, it's usually more for analysis. And I think Jamie Lyle's spoken about it on the Squid Rugby retrospective about, again, going back to the importance of silence. And, saying that actually, the way some people have brought it, I think Philippa Tuttiett can be really good with. She can flick between the two because you can get really excited, but also then say, well, actually, this is a very intricate thing. This is how the kick battle would work. And, it's really useful. And I look, Austin Heagley is one of those people who could be absolutely terrible, but you give him a really nice, intricate first phase play and like the detail he can break that down into and how simply he can describe it. Like that, that's what me as someone who's a bit more geeky about my rugby. That's the sort of stuff I want for my co-coms. I can get why the shouty it just gets noise then. But yeah, I do think sometimes they go a bit lazy and sometimes they just go into cliches. I do agree. I do, however, agree. I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, and my mum will push me out of the plane on the way to Leon for saying this. I agree with Sir Clive about Wales, Australia.
Right, that's it. We're done. No, that's it. We're done. I'm just going to go with this now.
On terms of points, yes. Like I can see, like Australia winning would be better for that. But I think Fiji exposed so many weak areas in that Australia team, and I don't think Eddie has the personnel or the time to fix them all. Because Fiji blew them, but I mean, we're going to go into. I feel like I'm jumping ahead here and like what Australia Fiji did well, but the way they broke down the Australian breakdown, I think Wales probably won't get as much change, but that's still something they can get at, and they look quite mentally frail as well. The Australians.
Well,
I think actually I can see where Sir Clive's coming from that, but I imagine that's not what he meant when he said it.
Okay, well, we'll put you on a yellow card for agreeing with Sir Clive, but it's definitely gone. It's gone to the bunker to decide whether.
Yeah.
We'll let everyone on Twitter decide whether you're allowed back on next week after agreeing with Sir Clive. So, yeah, going back to the commentary bit. So we did we had a crack at YouTube Live to see if we could actually make the bloody thing work. During the Portugal game, and eventually we got it to go, and it was a bit of a laugh and all of that kind of stuff, and we had some good feedback, and the people that were there were enjoying it and chatting and what have you. But we would, that game was, for all the games for us to choose to do, it couldn't have been a worse game to choose, because the amount of times that we screwed up stuff in that game, it was quite difficult to commentate, wasn't it? Well, not commentate, but we weren't trying to commentate, were we? We were just being your mates in a room and just talking like your mates in your room. But it was difficult to find something positive to say for most of that game, wasn't it?
There were things, but as I alluded to on when we were doing the live stream, it seemed Wales seemed to focus on speed over everything else, and in a weird way, that slowed everything down. Because they were so focused on just trying to do everything quickly, people weren't getting to the breakdown, which meant we weren't getting into shape, which meant it just looked awful, and then we were making mistakes, so we didn't score try. We were getting the ball turned over, but the backfield wasn't then covered properly, so that Portugal was getting 50-22s. Players were isolated. I think the first turnover penalty that Mason Grady gives away is because Dylan Lewis overruns his support line and has to go all the way back to get into the breakdown, because he's completely cocked in foot, because it looks like set up for the inside ball, and he shoots overruns it. I mean, I'll get onto a lot. I mean, I do feel for Grady, because he seemed to take a lot of flack, and looking at it, watching it back, he got put in an awful lot of shit. But yeah, it was very hard to be positive. I mean, I thought our carrying game, in terms of like individuals carrying, was some of the best I've seen in a while. The problem was the support and the structure wasn't there to sort of make the most of it.
I think we said this at the time. One of the good things from that game was that it was a full stadium, and actually the atmosphere seemed quite good. I mean, when Portugal were running the ball, it seemed like there were a lot of French people in there supporting Portugal, and I quite liked that. I quite enjoyed the fact that what you might class as a lower tier nation was actually getting a fair bit of support at the World Cup. And if you're coming into that and you're Portugal, that's their first game, that's a good experience. And if you're sitting at home, if you're Portuguese and you're sitting at home, you're not going to be pissed off with your team tuning in and playing that game, and you're going to hear the crowd and all that kind of stuff, and you might just go and watch a few more games. So I quite like that from that kind of angle. I'll come on to Mason Grady later because I didn't think he had that bad a game. In all honesty, there were a couple of key bits that he screwed up, but in general, I thought he was all right. So, Jane, what did you enjoy about the game? Let's start with that one. What did you actually enjoy in that Wales Portugal game?
What did I enjoy? I think from a Welsh point of view, there wasn't much to enjoy at all, was it? It was an absolute slog. But let's be positive. I tell you what I did enjoy from that game. I enjoyed watching Portugal. I thought they were fantastic. I really did. I loved the brand of rugby they played. The ambition and the energy they played with. And it was just great to see them having a crack, wasn't it? When Warren Gatland said before the game that there were similarities with Fiji and Portugal, and I was kind of like, is there? But then I saw what he meant in terms of their line speed and the way they are with ball in hand, how dangerous they are. And yeah, I was really impressed. I thought their fullback was great. The no-look pass on the line out was terrific. The line speed in defence and the physicality, they surprised me just how physical they were. I mean, they didn't shirk any chance, did they? They were really taking it to Wales. And I did think to myself, well, is this sustainable? How long will it be before they start, fading away? And I thought in that second half, Portugal would fade away, the gaps would open up, Wales would be clinical, and then they'd build up a score. I mean, how wrong was I? Portugal went at it from the beginning to end, and I thought they were absolutely terrific. And I thought they gave a very, very good account of themselves, and they should be very proud of themselves. So, yeah, watching Portugal was great fun, but I mean, from a Wales point of view, I mean, there wasn't much to enjoy. I mean, the good thing was that we got a bonus point win, just about. But I found Wales a slog, and this game just sums up for me what we always known about Wales, particularly in the Warren Gatland era, is that whenever they make wholesale changes, we always struggle. It never goes to plan. Every time we make 13 or 12 in this case, because Jack Morgan had to come back in, didn't he? Because Tommy Reffel pulled out. Whenever we make wholesale changes, it's an absolute slog. And I did get frustrated with that game. As much as I enjoyed watching Portugal, I thought they played some lovely rugby from a Wales point of view. If I had any hair, I would have been tearing it out because it was awful. I mean, the line-out malfunctioned, accuracy was poor, it was disjointed, the half-backs really struggled to get put in the game, and it was great to see Ants come back. Didn't have a great game, did he? Let's be honest. Thomas Williams didn't have a great game. I think Thomas Williams is better coming off the bench personally now than starting. I think that's his role in this Wales team. I'd be starting Gareth Davies every time. I tell you what, a good positive for Wales, mind. Aside from the obvious of Jack Morgan and Tupi Fartel, I thought this was Chris Chunza's best game for Wales. I thought he was very, very good. He made a line break or two. He worked really hard in defence. His work at the ruck was good. He was hitting the rucks hard. I have been a little bit underwhelmed by Chunza, as Harley knows. I've had this conversation because for me, he does enough, but he doesn't do anything to really stand out. I want to see him impose himself on the game a little bit more, but he's certainly done that against Portugal. So that was a major positive for me, Chris Chunza.
I actually could find only one fault in Chunza's game, and that was a missed time jump line-out. So, you can tell he's not used to lifting. That whenever you watch him play, he always jumps, but I never see him lift. And you could tell there was a missed jump line-out. On the misfiring line-out, yes, a couple of them were bad and they were on us. But I feel like we're doing discredit to Portugal because they did some apps. There's that one where we were 5 meters out and they stole it up on the front. And they just they just won the race up, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It was just a case of they stole it, and sometimes I think you've got to say fair fucks. But I would point out, so I want to check in my stat of the week, if that's all right. So this is from Russ Petty. So throughout 2023, up until this game, Wales averaged 108 runs for 351 metres, and they would make 5 clean breaks. And that's over in 80 minutes. By the first half, in 94 runs, they'd made 423 metres and 6 clean breaks. By the end of the game, Rio Dyer alone made 8 clean breaks. The problem was because this team were so thrown together, they weren't there. They didn't know. They weren't quite in the right place to make things. And actually watching it back, you looked at some of the mistakes and it is literally inches. It's inches, it's a second. Like, I reckon if you put that team out again, most of those mistakes wouldn't happen. There'd be some completely new mistakes, admittedly, but I think, just to be say, I don't think it was that bad. I just think it looks terrible because of where those little mistakes were. One thing I want to say is actually I was very impressed with Johnny Williams. And I never thought I'd ever say those words. And I think his yellow card was actually the right call.
Yeah, we discussed that quite a bit, didn't we? When is it right to give a yellow card?
I thought it was a very sensible one because I think Portugal would have been in and away if he hadn't slapped that ball. And then go back to Grady, I thought he covered for Johnny Williams quite well in defence in those 10 minutes.
So I'll come back to that bit about selecting the same team again and all of that, because I think that's where we miss a trick. But I just want to go back to Shunza for a second. I think the most interesting thing, not the most interesting thing, but the thing I find interesting with Shunza is it takes everybody a while to get used to his name. And we pronounce it as Chris Shunza. Yeah, so we leave the T off. It's almost like a silent T because that just feels weird saying that's your first name. And I saw a clip off an Australia. I can't remember if it was a radio or TV, and the presenter's going, and that's Christ Shunza. Christ? The guy's called Christ? and you go, and somebody corrects him and goes, it's pronounced Christ. And he goes, looks like Christ to me, it does. So yeah, I think the amount of different spellings of his name, his surname, if I'm ever writing it, I'll go back and I'll find it on the WRU website just to make sure that I get it right. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't want to be cocking that up. The guy's worked hard to get to where he's got to, so the least you can do is spend 30 seconds and find out to spell his fucking surname properly, But go back to consistency. I think this is where we continually shoot ourselves in the foot. Like I say, making 12 changes, 13 changes, whatever. And we're throwing players in who don't actually, not a lot of them are coming on regularly as subs. Do you know what I mean? So they're not even involved in match day 23s that much. And for me, this is where Gatland gets it wrong so many times, because it's like putting your B team out. And with the best will in the world, your B team in training are, they're your defence. The only time your B team get the ball in training is when you want your A team to work on defence. And even then, it'll be right. I want you to play like Australia. I want you to play like Fiji. I want you to play. Do you know what I mean? They're not there and they're not playing as themselves. So when you throw them into a game, it's like when we used to play trial games. When you're walking down the tunnel and you're going, all right, so you're so and so from there, and you're on my team. All right. And you get that feel when they're coming out. You go, right, just find somebody in a black shirt, boys, and throw them the ball. So I think it's one of the areas of the game that we really need to improve. Because you look at Ireland, France, New Zealand, and if we're going to do anything, those are the teams that we need to judge ourselves against. when they make changes, all right, the French one kind of backfired this week, I'll be fair on that. But normally when they make changes, it's within the squad and it's like they'll make 7 or 8 and they might even throw a couple of weird ones in on a big game. But it just seems like it's got a plan. It's got we've identified 6 players that are likely to come through in the next 2 years and we want to start giving them time. Not, we're going to wait until we play Portugal and then Georgia and then we'll give Shinza a game against the lower teams, So for me, where it goes back to, and this is where so many problems in the Welsh setup are, not just the Welsh game, not just the Welsh team, but the Welsh game as a whole. We focus so much on the 15 players or the 23 players that take the park, and we forget that there's thousands of players that support the pyramid that get them there. And we're just continually shooting ourselves in the foot every time.
I'm going to quickly come in and bang a drum. I've been banging since the 2015 World Cup. If we're bringing in Wales A, can we fucking use Wales A? Like, it doesn't matter if we're using them to play Scarlets or to try and do a weird fixture with Munster or whatever, like South Africa use, or if we go on tour, we take Wales A and they go, Namibia, watching Namibia, they're crying out for even a second string team to come and play them more regularly. Because clearly the other teams in Africa are not giving them the sort of challenge they need to get better. I'm wondering, I don't know if you guys would agree, maybe what would be better is when we have situations like this, instead of completely wholesale, because if you think about it, Zanet and Faletau only started that game because he needs game time. Like, if he'd been fit and firing up until then, full well he wasn't playing.
Yeah.
Do we almost need to have the team that finishes one game starting the next one and then bringing in the bench and then bringing in a fresh bench, and maybe if someone's a bit injured or battered, then are only changing one. So that's something Andy Farrell's got quite right. Is the reason why I don't seem to be having low scores is it's very rare they ever do a wholesale change. It's always like, oh, we'll try a different hooker with starting props. We'll try a slightly different back row. We'll try a different centre, a different centre in the partnership, and sort of just tweaking one or two. Obviously, Gatland doesn't have that luxury because he's only had them for 6 months, not 4 years. But he was doing this beforehand. 2019 Uruguay game, we had the horror hat trick from Hallam Amos. We had 3 disallowed tries. We just about squeaked the bonus point. One thing I would like to point out: only one team was convincing with their second choice, and that was South Africa. So the South Africa game, France didn't get a bonus point. And remember, England only just got past Japan, and Japan have been pretty bobbins this year. You make points about that, but England were pretty much full strength. I don't think you're going to see many change. You'd see many changes for their South Africa game next week.
The thing is, what disappointed me? Sorry, go on.
I was about to say, everyone's having a go. Everyone's having a go at Wales for putting a second team out and only just getting past. But then some teams only just got past in a less convincing thing. Like, I don't think there was ever a point when that game was in doubt.
No,
it's controversial. The bonus point was in doubt, but the game was fine. Whereas Uruguay, I think genuinely had a chance of beating France. I just feel like it's a narrative that's always picked. I brought it up last week. I think there's a narrative against Wales, and people always want to do Wales down.
I think with the Japan game, if that ball doesn't come off Marla's head and go over, England was screwing up stuff left, right, and centre up to that point, and that kind of settled them. So one lucky bounce off his head for a try, and that kind of allowed them to go on. So without that, they would have still been struggling.
Well, the first try was a mistake as well from Japan.
I just want to quickly say, though, that the most disappointing thing for me is, and I'm not taking anything away from Portugal here, I really don't want to do them a disservice because they were fantastic. But when you looked at the players that we had, when you looked at that team, Now, I'm sorry, that still should have been good enough to put Portugal to the sword, because there was experience in there, there was quality in there. But every time we do this, it never quite clicks. But I was really disappointed that, yet again, several individuals just didn't put their hand up. And that's what Gatland wants. When he makes these changes, he is laying down a challenge to the players. He's saying, putting your hands up for the next game. And several players didn't do that. But like I said, no disrespect to Portugal. They were fantastic. But we really should have taken Portugal to the cleaners with that team. I'm not saying it should have been 70, 80 points, but we should have put them to the sword a lot sooner. And it's really disappointing that we didn't, quite frankly. And let's not forget, there's only one of their players is playing top 14 rugby. The rest of them playing lower league. Some of them are amateurs. The captain even said that after the game. So that's what makes it a little bit disappointing, a little bit like when we try to compare other teams, a little bit more disappointed. You know, we are playing amateurs, and now it's disappointing we didn't really get the job done as we would have liked.
So before we move on to Fiji, Australia, then let's just talk about, and this kind of goes back to some of the stuff in the press as well. So Pinto's red card. So let's remove the referee, because we said we're not going to talk about referees and all of that kind of stuff. I'm more interested in, do you think that was a red? Yeah. And the reaction in the media to it, because I'm quite clear that was a red. Yeah, your intention, if your intention is one thing, and the outcome is something different, you get judged on the outcome. But take Joe Marler the other way around. Yeah, so he didn't mean to nut that ball on. He didn't mean to stick the head on it and put it over the try line. But that's what happened. And England got 7 points from it. So whether, if you're just going to go on, did you mean to do that? No, I didn't. Okay, we'll take the 7 points off you. No, that's not the way it works. Yeah. So whether or not he was in the air, he was off balance. That's his issue. Nobody else's. Nobody touched him in the air. He timed his jump wrong. He got his body shape all out of wrong. And in order to get himself back down safely, he threw a leg out, in a fraction of a second. He threw a leg out and it was dangerous. And it happened to hit Adams just below the eye. If it was a centimetre, maybe 2 centimetres higher, that's he's off and he's out of the tournament. End of. Yeah. So I thought he played quite well as a player up to then, but I've got no sympathy for it at all, because we don't judge on intention. We judge on outcome, and the outcome was that foot was in a dangerous position. So, he might get away with it when he sits down with his review board, and they might go, okay, yeah, we can see it. As opposed to if he was jumping and fully in control with a foot fully extended, and it goes right into Adams, then when it gets to the review board and they decide on the ban, then that's a different place. Either way, it was a red card for me straight off. So what did you guys make of it?
Do you want me to go first? Okay, I'll go first then. So I can understand why people might think it's harsh, but by the letter of the law, it is a red. It's a very similar incident. I don't know if you guys remember this. Do you remember, I think it was about 3-4 years ago, so Dan Evans, he was playing against Racing in the Heineken Cup, and he jumped up in the air, he caught Teddy Thomas in the face, and he got a red card for it after just 37 seconds. That's what it reminded me of. It was a very similar incident to that. And you are absolutely rightly about intent. It's irrelevant, because obviously Pinto did not intend to harm Josh Adams. He didn't intend on connecting him in the face. But here's the problem, right? If you extend your leg in the air towards an opponent and it connects with his or her face, then you're asking for trouble straight away. Intent doesn't come into it. Whether you meant it or not, if you extend your leg, connects to the face, it's going to be a red card. Just because people don't like it, just because people don't agree with it, doesn't mean it's not a red. So, yes, I understand why people don't like it. but by the letter of the law, it is a red card. So yeah, I agree with you. I got no issue with it. For me, it's a red.
So Harley, what did you make of the media reaction to it? Lots of people who should know better, shall we say, tweeting that it should never. I saw one of our favourites, who said Adams made contact with a player in the air, so he should have been yellow carded. And I replied, he headbutted the bottom of his foot. Surely that's a red card every time. What did you make of the media reaction to it, mate?
I mean, first of all, I just want to say, Jamie pointed out my point. This has happened before, and it's also happened at the international level. I've forgotten the game. Someone else has posted about it. It's slipped mind, but it is a red card. I was talking with Francisco about it, and I agree, it's tough. Personally, if the disciplinary panel comes out and says, "Do you know what, the red card on the field is enough," that just because he's not going to do it, he's going to make more. The reason why players are jumping up and getting their feet out is to protect them. Is a self-preservation thing, the good thing. It just gets that though when it looks so comically kung fu, it just looks really bad. And I mean, you've got a stud going into the IRI area. You potentially could blind a player doing that. I mean, I know what people are saying about why didn't he go for HAI. I'm not entirely sure that the sort of thing that happened. I think you've probably got more risk of the stud going in the eye and causing damage that way, which wouldn't necessarily generate a concussion. Maybe he should have gone off to be checked anyway. Personally, I'd rather be safer than sorry. The media reaction, though, was just utterly baffling. And this particular person we're on about, it's not the first time he's had a go at Josh Adams for being the victim.
Mm.
He also pointed out that after Adams milked it after being taken out in the air. And it makes you wonder, did he refuse his autograph one time? Did he skip out on a tab? Or were they in a round and he skipped out beforehand? Was he not invited to the gender reveal party? I don't know, but it's just baffling. Like the problem is as soon. I mean, what you've got to remember is as soon as someone says, "Oh, well, it's a red letter of the law," but there's no need for a but. That's the whole reason why rugby has laws and it's not rules. Is because in theory it's supposed to take it takes the interpretation out. For me, a law is more absolute.
And it is quite clear, many years ago when I was playing rugby league, I'd arrived for training early because I was playing youth, and Jonathan Davis and John Devereux were kicking practice. They were doing kicking practice, and Jonathan Davis was practicing with catching the ball with his leg straight out in front like that. Back in those days, that was how you did it. In rugby league, I think they probably still do. But, they were coming into Jonathan Davis with a pad and going, they almost like had a target on the pad, kick here, But this was 20, at least 20 years ago, probably 25 years ago. Yeah. And the game has moved on from there. The game, I know that was league and stuff, but the game has moved on to a bit where we understand what dangerous play is. There was a time when we literally, where scrums would go down and you literally just try and headbutt somebody as you were going in and hope that first contact would crush the other side of the scrum. We moved on. And I think these people that are writing these things and putting these things out on Twitter need to realize that actually, we're in a different game now. The game that I played, say 15, 20 years ago, was very, very different to the game my son plays now. It's a completely different scenario. It's safer, it's cleaner, it's more player orientated, it's welfare orientated. I've still got injuries now from when I was playing, and I can't see my son coming out of playing that game and having anywhere near the injuries that I've got, simply because players are looked after better now. So, these are the people that are putting this crap out don't understand that. They don't understand that the game has changed. The game has moved on. Somebody said about, rucking. As I say, I said on the Scarlets pod last week about how if we were on the wrong side, you got raked out of there and you came back out and you made sure that you didn't get caught there again. And somebody said about if somebody's lying on the wrong side, we should be allowed to rock them like in the good old days. They weren't good old days. They were the old days. There was nothing good about those days. There was just violence that was legalized on a little green pitch for an hour and a half on a Saturday afternoon, So, it's gone off topic, but there's a reason these red cards are there. And
the one thing I just want to add in, sorry, just to butt in, is the thing. Obviously, I was talking about the whole fact that there were studs in. Is that how is a stud to the eye any different to someone gouging? That's still that's still a potentially blinding injury. So if you think gouging should be a red card, then surely that should be as well. It's simple as that for me.
But I think a lot of this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Is clickbait, and people go in, I'll get a certain type of people that will shout and scream, and any interaction is good interaction and all of that kind of stuff. So let them carry on. Just some people are idiots.
Anyway, if we want to go on to what I think is, once again, no Fiji, no party in this World Cup. I think so. I think they have to get to the final just purely because that will guarantee the game's awesome. So let's move on to Fiji beating Australia. Although I did have a slight miscalculation yesterday because I somehow took the score and thought they were 8 points ahead until about 2 minutes to go. Until about a minute ago, went bugger 27.
I was gutted when that last kick didn't go. I was watching the game in the car on the way home, so I dropped the boy at uni and was watching it on the way home. So we're heading down the M4 and Fiji break away for their first try. And the car's quite quiet, but I obviously had it on mute. So and I go, yeah, come on. And the white, what the fuck is what you on about? What's wrong? Oh, Fiji just scored. Fiji just got and doing 70 miles an hour down the M4, you twat. So
I had a similar. I woke the baby up during the Japan game when Japan made a huge break.
We needed that kick to go over though, because look, I was in a typical position because I really love Fiji and I got them in the office sweepstakes. So partly was like, I want Fiji to do this. But on the other hand, I was thinking it would be much better for Wales, less sweat and less stress if Australia win, So it's a bit of a conundrum for me. But I'm not going to lie, there were moments in the game where it was like, come on, Australia. And then there were moments in the game where it was like, come on, Fiji. That missed penalty at the end, we really needed that to go over. Because it would be much better if Australia did not have that losing bonus point, wouldn't there? But the game itself was terrific. I thought Fiji were great. The difference this week to last week, though, they kicked their goals. The scrum half, he actually kicked his goals. That was the difference. It makes you wonder if they didn't have, if they had that last week against Wales, they probably would have won. They left a lot of points out there from the team. But they were aggressive at the breakdown. They were physical. They're brilliant carrying. Australia just looked off it, didn't they? I never once thought that they would come back and beat Fiji when they were trailing. Even when they scored near the end, I just didn't think, you're not going to do it. They didn't deserve to. I think the scoreline actually flattered Australia in many ways. Fiji were worthy winners, and good on them. They're fantastic. Was that great game, great performance?
No, I completely agree. I think Fiji really good for it. I agree with you as well. I think if they were kicking their goals and they had the confidence, I don't not want to say definite because you just don't know. I think it's very likely they've beaten us, but Australia just. I think Australia they're missing Tupou and Skelton because Tupou just been amazing getting around, and then the sheer weight that Skelton adds to their scrum, and particularly when the second string scrum, the bench came on, it just fell apart for them. And this is the thing with Fiji. The way you got through Fiji was you targeted their set piece. Yeah, at the moment they're a bit like Cardiff. Turnovers galore, no line out. But their scrum has improved massively, and you've got to step up equivalent. I mean, Wales came a cropper of it when we thought we'd get away with the front row we finished with. but it's just so good. I mean, I at no point was I conflicted, because for me, if Wales are getting through, they're getting through by their own merit, not favours from other teams. And I just want Fiji to do well, because I like Fiji. You know, if that first game was Fiji versus anyone other than Wales, I'd be supporting Fiji again. It was just such a good game. But I agree. Like, Australia had a couple of good moments. I mean, a lot of people are complaining about their one try, which I think is a bit shitty anyway, because it's like, oh, the lineup didn't go 5. I went, yeah, because it went 4.97. Get over yourself. Like, it was still
playing
a
the
good
ball
try.
on the floor, though. Did you not think they played the ball on the floor? It did look like.
I think so. I don't think so. Well, it was, I think, you know, if someone gets tackled and then they pop the ball up for an offload, you know, is that playing the ball on the floor? I mean, technically, but you know, it's like the cornerstone for how good France's attack is being able to quickly offload off the deck. You know, I mean, I do think the scoreline flatters Australia, which is kind of why I agree with Lord Voldemort. You know, I didn't see anything in that Australia performance that necessarily worries Wales, which is the thing that worries me. Because if anyone can turn around and basically decide, oh, hang on, here's the perfect game plan to defeat Wales, it's probably Eddie.
Well, let's look at Australia then, just as Australia. Where do we think their strengths are? Where will they be dangerous for Wales? Jane, where do you think that we've got to keep an eye on Australia on Saturday?
Well, look, it's not quite clicking for them, but they have got a handful of really good players. So if you look at their backline, I actually think they've got a pretty dynamic backline. You know, they've got dangerous runners like Samuel Karevi, Jordan Patea, Corabetti, Ben Donaldson is a very handy player. So if they're given time and space, those guys can do a lot of damage. So we will have to be careful. You know, they can play some really good rugby. Harley touched on earlier, this scrum has improved. I think Angus Bell has been brilliant for them, by the way. Really, really good player. The set piece will have to be right, you know, our set piece, because let's be honest, our scrum and line out is a bit iffy, to say the least, at the moment. So we really are going to have to get the upper hand there. Massive loss to Poe and Skelton, as Harley has already touched on. I don't know if Eddie's just talking bollocks, playing mind games, but he says they're not going to be available. And it won't surprise me one bit if they are named in the team. Although I will say, though, I thought, and the positive for the Wallabies, I thought Nick Frost was very, very good in the second row. Really, really good. They've got a bit of a problem, though, haven't they, at fly half? So you guys know I've been talking about Australia's vulnerability at 10 with Carter Gordon. I think they've chucked this lad into the deep end and he's sinking. And he was out of his depth yet again, I'm afraid, on Sunday. And that was proven when Eddie Jones took him off after just 50 minutes. It was painful to watch, quite frankly. Do not be surprised if Eddie starts Ben Donaldson at 10. I think he's going to make a change there. I don't think he's going to have Carter go and start it. I think he'll have Ben Donaldson. He has played at 10 for Australia before, but he is a fullback by trade. But I will not be at all surprised if they stick Ben Donaldson at 10, because he's already doing the goal kicking anyway. So I think that might be one of the changes that Eddie might consider. But it's do or die for them, and they will be dangerous. And we know what to expect from Australia. And on the one hand, I think this is a team that Wales shouldn't fear at all. But given our recent record against the Wallabies, it does make me a tad nervous. But, you know, they've got good players and they shouldn't be underestimated. They are a dangerous team, but I do feel that we should have the upper hand. But we certainly can't take it for granted, because, like I said, they've got some big ball carriers and some dangerous players in that team, even if it's not quite clicking at the moment.
So, Harley, given where Australia are, and, you know, this is, if they don't win on Saturday, that's it. They may as well pack their bags and go home. I think if they don't win on Saturday, Eddie probably will be packing his bags and the rest of the squad will be staying there. But how does that change the mental approach to this game? You know, they've got everything on this now, whereas Wales, you know, it's not do or die for us. The Fiji game was do or die. This is a little bit not do or die. So how does that change for Australia now?
I mean, it may not be do or die, but it's it's still a hell of an important game. Now we want to make sure we get something from it. So we're still going to be looking at. I mean, we should be aiming for a win. And I do feel like when Eddie Jones made his blasé comment about, he's picked a squad to win the World Cup. I do think he's thinking of 2027, not this one, because there's so many young players and stuff. I do think Australia can be desperate, which can bring out the best and the worst in Australian teams. Because it can bring the best out because they'll end up just throwing caution to the wind, and they could tear our defence to shreds just by intricate passing and just playing rugby. But it can also bring the worst out because you've got a lot of young, inexperienced players there. And what we know is when young, inexperienced players get stressed, they tend to make stupid mistakes, whether that's throw-in offloads that aren't on, or it's stupid penalties. So I think the key is going to be for Wales is they can't, we say this every game, and we said this for both games so far as World Cup, and they've done the opposite. So I mean, I might as well tell them try reverse psychology and try to just throw it around with abandon. But I think you've just got to, do almost similar to how we beat them in 2019. Do you know what? If it's drop goals on, kick the drop goal. It'll make grab from a rock and roll's piss on a permanent rolling boil, which I always find funny because I know how much he hates drop goals. But you know what? Just kick threes. I mean, I've already gone too close to Clive, so I'm not going to count up in multiples of 3 because I feel like if you can't do that and you're an adult, then maybe go back to school. But I think Wales have just got to be disciplined to take the things they did really well in the Fiji game. The defense was really good. They took their chances. Yeah, maybe change the kicking game. So I know we typically don't kick to touch because we like to keep it on field and go for a thing. I think that might be a mistake, particularly with players like Mark Wangatino Wase. I apologise.
I could never say it.
I know I fucked that one
can't say
already.
it. That's why I didn't
I
mention
don't get paid for this.
I can't say it.
But players like that are gonna. I think Ben Donson, Carter Gordon is an incredibly exciting but very experienced right half. You get him. I know people complain about this tactic, despite the fact every team does it, and every team I've ever been known or been a part of coaches their flankers do this and just hit the 10.
Yeah.
You will rile him. I think it'll be interesting to see if it's Nick White starting or Tate McDermott, because I think he should be over his concussion by now. Because I think, again, if it's Nick White, he's going to be a little pissed boy and he's going to be kicking 50-22s and smirking at you because he is the epitome of what a good scrum half is at times. He's just a dick. And I mean that as the highest compliment, so please don't at me, Australian rugby fans. I love Nick White because he's a prick. Wales shouldn't be worried, which is exactly why Wales should be worried, because as soon as we go into a game as favourites, that's when things seem to go weird and wrong, especially against Australia. The big thing for me, I don't know if we're going to have any time to touch on what we might change on the bench. I'm very, very tempted to take a couple of those first 15 players and stick them on the bench. Not because I think necessarily they've done anything wrong. It's purely because having that experience at the end of the game, I feel, is going to be far more important than at the start. So I think having Adam Beard, when he came on, it sort of shored a few things up. I mean, there's still plenty of things that went wrong, but maybe him coming off the bench, because I think David Jenkins has shown that he's more good enough to do 50 minutes at top level rugby and hold his own. And then having Beard come on might just sort of help us stabilise in that transition of leadership. Derry Lake, I kind of want to see come off the bench. I loved Lake, but I think him coming off his impact and maybe sort of backloading it so it's more, your Nicky Smith, your Derry Lake, people who are very good over the ball, just to help slow that game down, because that's when teams get to us at the moment.
That's why we always end up in those last kind of 5-10 minutes and squeaky bum times that we're never quite sure, are we good enough to see the game out?
This is the one player I think we're missing. And on merit, maybe doesn't, and the way he's been playing and the fact he hasn't really been playing for the Ospreys, I think we're really missing at the moment is Owen Watkin. Just because of how good he was in 2019 at just helping close the game out. I do think we're missing him, the thing is, we're probably going to start Tompkins and North in the centre, and I'm not sure I trust either Johnny Williams or Mason Grady to come on and see that game out yet, because I don't think either of them necessarily have the experience. I know you love Johnny Williams. Personally, this is where I feel like we really could have done with taking the risk on Joe Roberts. So I think defensively, he's probably the most sound centre who was in that sort of squad.
I think Watkins is a stretch and a half, mate. I think going with Watkins would be, going just a bit too far. I agree with you on Joe Roberts defensively.
My point is 2019 Watkin more than necessarily Watkin that sort of play now. It's that having that person who can come off and just lock down the midfield, whether he comes on at 12 or 13.
Well, if we're time traveling, then I'm going back and I'm getting Mark Jones back at number 8 and an informed
really?
Jonathan. Yeah.
Mark Jones over Talupe Falate. I mean,
Mark Jones.
Have a word with yourself, Lee. Have a word.
Mark Jones from Neath. Yeah.
I thought we were about the winger, right?
No.
I was like, what the fuck's he on about?
Mark Jones. He was an absolute animal back in the 80s. He was he had a lot of issues after the game and all that.
I mean, if we want proper time travel, we only have to go back to Josh Navidi. that would solve so many of our problems.
The Cardiff boy brings up Josh Navidi. There we go.
Name me a player who we missed more under pivot than Josh Navidi when he was out.
See, Navidi is a little bit like calling them Cardiff Blues on Twitter, because you don't actually need to say anything else. You just say, "Oh, I'm not a fan of Navidi," and whap, bang, they're in, they're gone. You call them Cardiff Blues, that's it. The fucking fireworks have gone and everything's off, man.
He was a good player though, and Ali is right. We did miss him. He was a very good player, really hard working, industrious. Yeah, we did miss him.
But now that he's not there, it's more fun to just wind up Cardiff people.
The difference between those two is it's objectively funny when the reaction of some Cardiff fans when you call them the Blues. Navidi just was an awesome player, and you're wrong to say otherwise.
So what?
It's like Dan Carter was a shit fly half. It's just wrong.
Okay, I'm posting this one out with some New Zealand comments. So,
are you just going to clip the Dan Carter with a shit fly half of the? Made a nice and neater one for you to clip and sound.
Yeah, we'll put that one out. So, what are we expecting from Wales? How are Wales going to win this? I agree with attack Australia with their week and their week between 8, 9, 10 and the week in attack there and the week in defence there. So I'd be sending every runner. I'd be swapping George North to inside centre, and I'd be going, there you go, have a crack at him. And he's had a go, and then right, let's fire it out straight down there. And I'd go bang, bang, bang. Especially those first 20 minutes, I would batter them up front for the first 20 minutes. I know some people don't like the word batter, but we're going to batter them up front for the first 20 minutes and just go, do you know what? This is what it's like when you play men's rugby, boys. We're not going to fart around. We're not going to mess about anymore. This is important now. And we're going to send you home. We're going to say, I would just get in their faces. And I would be giving them the verbal. I'd be giving them the eyeball. I'd be doing absolutely everything to take them out of the game in that first 20 minutes. And I think that the bit after that is the last 20. If you take that out of them in the first 20, you like I said, they're going to come at us. They've got everything in this game. And if you can take that out of them in the first 20, that makes your last 20 a lot easier. And the bit that I think we're poor at in the last 20 is turning the screw, hammering the nail, and just not giving them anything. Just do ruck after ruck after ruck after ruck. We run out of people. Stick it in touch 50 meters down the pitch, and make them work from where they don't want to be. And every time they look up, the ball is flying 20 meters behind them, or it's the other side of the pitch, but they're going nowhere near it. I think we've got to be smart with this, and I don't care what kind of game we play. I really don't. I just want to see us take Australia out of this game. And then,
but that's the question, though, isn't it? Are we gonna have the style that we saw against Fiji when they went all out attack and was a little bit loose, or are we just going to revert to basics and go Warrable 2.0? That's the question. I'm interested to see how we're going to, approach this game.
So, how would you approach it? If you were Warren, how do you? What tactics do you send those boys out with on Saturday?
Warrable. I know people don't like it, and it's really boring to watch, but we need to do what we're good at, and we are good at Warrable, and that's the approach I would be taking. You are right about the last sort of 20 minutes of the game. We aren't very good at turning the screw, and it really doesn't help when players give away dull as fuck penalties, and that needs to be knocked on the head. We cannot have the likes of, I'm not just singling him out, but I'm just using it as an example. We can't have Corey John Chetty coming off the bench and being dull as fuck and given a yellow card, because when that happens, you put the team right under pressure. That's what happened against Fiji, and it happened against Australia, actually, when we played them in the autumn. If you will cast your mind back when Dave Rennie was coaching them and then pivot for Wales, our discipline was poor. Who brought the ball down? Remember Ryan Elias bringing the ball down, yellow card? Yeah, it went tits up from there. We cannot have a situation where someone does something really fucking stupid and puts us under pressure for the last 15, 20 minutes. We got to be clinical. We got to be smart. And I think there'll be a lot of kicking. And we just got to be patient and we got to be clinical. I don't think we're going to see what we saw in the first game against Fiji, where we were playing a little bit too loose and running from our own 22. Then again, we might. I don't know. I'd be very surprised if we're going to run it from our own 22 against Australia. I think Australia will like that, though. I don't think they'll like a tight set-piece game, because we can target them in the scrum. Like I said, Tupou and Skelton's a big loss for them. I just think we're the better team. I know that's me being biased on the Welsh Rugby podcast. I generally think we are a better team than Australia, and I think we should have the edge over them.
I don't think we need to worry about pissing off our Australian listeners, Jane, to be honest. I think
no one's going to listen to us from Australia, are they?
We do, yeah. We've got listeners in Australia and New Zealand and Japan and all sorts of crazy places. But I don't think that they're going to be pissed off with I don't think there's a massive Australian crowd going, have you heard that bastard on the rock pad going, I fucking have him when I see him.
I just want to add, the important thing is whether we go for Warrable or if we go for this more open attacking plan, which I think Gatland is leaning towards, just purely because we don't really have the players to go solidly into Warrable. The important thing, which is the thing that cost us in the Portugal game and towards the end of the Fiji game, is accuracy. Whichever game we go for, everyone has to commit to it 100% and just be on it. And I think even if it is just attacking, getting that wide, it's getting that pass where it needs to go. Like, a lot of the pressure we had in the Fiji game wasn't the fact we tried to go wide, it was the fact that the pass was shit to go wide. The issue with Portugal was we were making the line break and then the clear out wasn't accurate, which is, again, a problem that's been with Wales for that. So either we need to dial that back so that we can focus on accuracy and then speed up, or we go straight to kick, or we go for kicking to the corners. I do think for this one we probably want to be more either proper compete and have our best aerial. So if we're going to kick, then I'd start bigger. I'd start Sanjay to have Adams and Dyer, because I think they're both better aerially than Zamet, and then have Zamet come on and then he can just do his thing at the end of the game. If we're going to go for more nice intricate passing, we need to have Tompkins. I mean, I think Tompkins and North are starting anyway. I don't think either the other two have done enough. I don't think they necessarily did anything wrong. I just don't see how it works. Like, I don't see Johnny Williams and George North working. I don't see Johnny Williams and Grady working. And then I'm not sure Johnny Williams at 13, particularly if we haven't tried it.
Yeah. No.
So I think it's got to be that. I mean, I am tempted to have Bigger on the bench and start Costello or Anscombe. It's whether or not Gatland's seen enough in Anscombe. I'd say it's a big call.
Yeah.
And it's whether or not Gatland trusts the number 2 guy. That's me thinking purely at the end of defending a lead. We might be needing to chase a game, in which case you want Costello there. I think the big thing is I'd be tempted to just take Lewis out of it take the risk with Henry Thomas, whether you start him or bench him. Make sure that scrum is fallible. And I think maybe the same month. So I can't believe I'm saying drop the Cardiff players. I thought Corey Damachowski actually was very good against Portugal when he came on. I thought his carrying was great. I think he gave that one stupid penalty against Fiji. I don't think he's gonna. He does.
But you should do it again. Gatland, you have it for breakfast.
Then again, I remember a time when Thomas Francis was first starting out, and he seemed to give away one stupid penalty every game, and then all of a sudden, and then you go fast forward almost a decade, and you wouldn't think to drop him. I thought Francis proved a lot of people wrong. So I mean, it depends. I do feel like if Henry Thomas isn't fit for this game, you're basically playing him for Georgia. I'm not so sure that works. The big one for me, loose head, is do we start Nicky Smith? Do we bench Nicky Smith? Do we stick with Domachowski and Gareth Thomas? I don't really know. Personally, I think Nicky Smith had a very good game. But
start with Thomas, I would. Don't know, Nicky Smith on the bench, personally.
I like the idea of having Nicky Smith there as a jackal threat, because he will slow them. Even if he doesn't make the turnover, he will slow it down. And I think that is something that we're really lacking.
And he's better off the bench as well, I think, Nicky Smith for Wales. I think he's good coming off.
Agree. And this is kind of what I think maybe with Derry Lake as well. I think he might be better off the bench, because if you have to take Jack Morgan off, you've got a captain ready to come on. True, because otherwise Jack Morgan would have played 3 consecutive 80 minutes.
Okay, gents, right. So we've talked it to death. It's time to put your bollocks on the chopper. Predictions for Wales, Australia. See, this is the nervous part. This is. I don't know why everyone finds this bit so nervous. It's just a guess, boys.
I reckon Wales go up to an 18-point lead and then win by 2.
That sounds very Wales, doesn't it?
Yeah. So Wales by 2 for Harley. Jamie?
Oh, like I said, I think we should beat this Australian team. We're more than capable. I don't think there's anything to fear. And yet the recent history between the teams does make me feel that, because we always seem to make it hard for ourselves against Australia. We haven't got a great record. Having said that, I am going to be positive, and I am going to go for a Wales win by 5 points. Wales by 5.
So I happened to stumble across a whole load of Australians. Facebook must be listening to me talking about stuff. So I had a whole load of Australian stuff up, and the Australian media is really going for Eddie Jones at the minute. Like proper, get rid of him. We don't need him. Blah blah blah. All of this kind of stuff. So I'm gonna make a bold prediction that we absolutely destroy them. I think this will be one of those games, a bit like the game against England, 30-3, where the people in 10, 15 years' time go, but you remember that Australia game, yeah? And I think we're really going to put them to the sword. From the first, 5-10 minutes, we're going to take them apart, and everything they try is just going to go wrong. So I'm going to say Wales by 20.
Bloody hell, 20?
Yeah, Wales by that. That's what I mean.
Way.
I think we underestimate how bad a shape Australia are actually in mentally and physically and skill wise. I think you saw in Eddie Jones's interview after the game against Fiji, where normally these this was wrong and this was wrong and it's all everybody else's fault and we're going to come back and we're going to win the World Cup and all of this kind of stuff. And he put his hands up and he went, I got that wrong. That was me. Blame me. Don't blame the players. So I think
he always does that. He takes pressure off the place. He's always done that. It's a well-known tactic, isn't it? Yeah, it's a well-known tactic.
Yeah, but when he's been having a go at the press and now the press are having a go at him, things are changing and they're not right. And there's a lot of rumours in Australians. You can never trust an Australian anyway. Let's be honest. You can never trust.
But do you have the same concerns as me, though? That although I think Wales will beat Australia, do you not have the same concerns that Eddie will have something up his sleeve? because he's a very canny operator, Eddie, and he is a bullshitter. And I think he's got something planned, something he's not telling us, something's up his sleeve for this game. Because, like you said, this is do or die for Australia. And it is for Wales in many ways as well, because if we lose this game and we get on the end of the wrong result, we're sweating going into that final weekend. Whereas if we win or beat Australia, we know that we're pretty much through. So this is absolute must-win for Wales. We don't want to be sweating on the final weekend and worrying about bloody points difference and all this other stuff. We need to win. But I'm just concerned. I just think I got this feeling Eddie's going to spring a surprise or two. What do you think?
I think, fuck him. I think he can bring what he wants. He can do what he wants. I just think that there's a bit of steel in that senior team now, with the way the press are having a go at Wales, with all of that kind of stuff. The English really don't like the fact that we're playing okay and they're not, and there's a lot of stuff coming our way. People seem to have forgotten that Scotland are even at the World Cup at the minute. So yeah, I think all of that's playing into our favour, and I think this is the game where Australia fall apart. And don't get me wrong, I don't think we're going to play interesting, exciting rugby. I think there'll be shitty passes that we kick through and Zammit runs 50 metres and scores. There'll be an interception when they're in our 22 and we leg the length of the pitch and all of that kind of stuff. It's not going to be an exciting, interesting game, but they will make mistake after mistake after mistake, and we will absolutely ram a hot rod at their arse and send them back up. I can see
you won't get this analysis on ITV. So what do you think of Eddie Jones? Have you got a trick up the sleeve or you spring a surprise? Back him. I mean, you won't get that, will you, on ITV?
Maybe that's why they cancelled my contract. Maybe that's what it is.
One thing I do want to point out is as I said, Gatland will have seen a lot that he can target after watching that Fiji game, and I don't think Eddie will be able to fix it all.
No.
That line-out move, which I think is possibly potentially try of the tournament from Portugal,
was beautiful, wasn't it?
Eddie will have seen that and gone, right, I've got some ideas now. He will have some ideas, and they do have some. Their line-out's not the best, but I mean, it helps having 6 foot a million Richie Arnold in the squad, who who just has to stick his arm up and he's taller than most people's highest jumpers anyway. So I think we do have to be careful when we start, if we concede any lineups on our own line. And as I said, Nick White loves a 50-22. So our backfield coverage has got to be so much better than it was against Portugal. I know a lot of those were straight off turnovers, but still, I think we do need to be there.
I'm going back to my fucking predictions. We're going to run all over them. Let's move on swiftly to the important bits of Fantasy League. Now, when we went into round 2, I was top of our Fantasy League. There was a last-minute adjustment, and I got an extra 5 points, and the person who was in first lost 10 points, and I overtook him. I'm now in 39th position.
Oh, you've massively slipped, boy, haven't you?
Jesus Christ.
What happened there then?
I banked heavily on the New Zealand pack, doing more than I expected. I banked heavily on French backs, doing more than they expected. I took a punt on a couple of Samoans and a couple of Japanese. I fucked it up, basically. But
you fucked it.
I took too many gambles in it. Well, New Zealand and France shouldn't have been a gamble, but I should have just stuck to South Africans. So anyway, top of the table now is Matthew Hinder on 1,354 points. Then Morgan D. Capitalo. I don't know if that's how you want to pronounce it, mate, but that's how I'm pronouncing it. Chris Roderick, who was he's been at the top quite a bit, in 4th, and then in 9th, Sir Dumpalode. I like the sound of that. Yeah, well done. 11th is the Flying Wedge. My boy is in 14th, and like I say, I'm down in 5th. I think the top of us lot is Carwin, who's in 20th, which I'm just going to guess this week. What now?
I think he's 70th, but yeah. I'm nowhere near. I did much better this round, but still.
Yeah, I was crap.
A lot.
So anyway, yeah, well done for those boys because they saw something we didn't. So anyway, hair, tash, and beard. I got to say, it was an absolute classic week for hair, tash, and beard. The Fiji scrum half that scored the try. What was his name? Harley, you can pronounce his name. What was his name?
I definitely Kuruvoli, I think is how you pronounce it.
Probably, I couldn't pronounce it.
And the first name I think is a variation on Simon. I apologize. I think it's Simeone.
I guess Simeone.
Yeah. Again, please don't have a go at me for it. Please correct me. And just tell me how I should be pronouncing it, and then I'll do better next time.
But just on the hair standings, it's I can't work out if it's a wide Mohican or a narrow mullet with the top half bleached, but like bleached all the way over the back and down the back. I mean, we're talking top class. Pepe Le Pew, yes, definitely. The Fijian skunk. And when he scored his try, just watching his hair go over the line was superb. So quite a lot of interesting takes from Samoans, and there's somebody else that had it as well, which is basically bald all over and then a little circle down the back of the head there with a ponytail. I mean, who the fuck comes up with that? You know, fair play to you, because that takes a lot of effort to get that bad boy in. And I'm going to give a shout out as well to Joe Marler, because it's gone from mullet and it's shrunk inwards and inwards and inwards, and it's now like a Mohican. It's a lazy Mohican. So yeah, fair play to that. And
that Mohican has a try assist.
Yes, he did. So my other favourite is the Japanese hooker with he's got like this shock. It looks like he's stuck.
The only way I can describe it, I don't mean this as an insult, but it looks like a palm tree.
it looks like he's stuck his finger in a socket.
It's glorious.
But he's got so much hair there that he's got to bunch them into pigtails on the side of his head. So he's got these wild, crazy dreadlocks in pigtails that kind of like sprout out the side of his head. I mean, I was loving the hair. Not seeing too much in terms of tash and beard. I mean, Nick White is still up there in terms of tashes. Not much really in beards. There's a lot of very well kept beards, and not seen a Jake Ball-esque massive beard growth that will keep you warm at winter beard yet. I may be wrong. Maybe we see that in the coming weeks. So we're nearly done, gents. Just to say, our YouTube live actually went quite well once we managed to get the link working, and we missed the first bit because me and Harley were sitting there going, is this working? Can you go and check and see if this is working? So it took us 5 minutes to work out that Raphael wasn't on the pitch and Jack Morgan was there, and we were like, that doesn't look like Raphael. And they said that while they were coming out, and they announced it just before, and we were like, oh yeah, we were still shouting in at the bloody computer screen trying to make it work. So we will do it again. I might do it for. So Harley, you're going to be out in France for this one, aren't you?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And as we discovered on the live chat, Lee is literally the only person going to be left in Wales.
I think there's me and some bloke from Blaenau Festygio driving a train going, where's everyone gone? But yeah, so yeah, we might have a crack at it. I might have a crack at the Wednesday game just for the laugh, because I'll be on my own. May as well have a go. But yeah,
as in this week.
Yeah, it's
yeah. I'll be around. I don't go. What is the Wednesday game? It's Italy, Uruguay, isn't it?
Uruguay, yeah.
That could be fun, and actually is an incredibly important game for that ball.
There we go.
I know I don't want to sound like Squidge bigging it up, but given how well Uruguay played against France seconds, I think Italy could come a cropper. And also we have Garbisi squared, which is something I'm really looking forward to seeing.
I'm looking forward to seeing Italian moustache. Italians have got a reputation for facial hair. That's what I'm looking for. I'm hoping to see.
The only problem is the Italian squad has an average age of 12. So they're only just getting into their beards.
They're bum fluff boys. Right. Okay. So that's us done for tonight, gents. Thankfully, we escaped the possibility of Carwyn getting home from training in time and joining us. We got away with that one, but he'll be back next week, and we'll be back to full numbers. Will you be back in time next week, Carly? What day are you flying back?
I fly back Tuesday night. So we're going out on the Sunday and then coming back on the Tuesday. So I probably will not be here.
Yay! I mean, yeah. So
I can give you a voice note to tag on the end, and you can just say, "Oh, well, he didn't know what he's on about."
sounds like a politician to me.
Well, you can always get the other guy back on.
Right. On that note, gents, we will call it a night, and I shall bid you all farewell. We shall do this again next week. It's been a pleasure as always. Good night, gents.
Good night. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Wrap Podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed recording it. Please do rate us and tell your friends, as it really helps us to grow and get better. We'll be back next week with more of the same, and until then, enjoy your rugby.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.